Hey guys, welcome back to another episode here with Rabbit Hole Stories. And we just come off the back of the recording with Samuel. And Ian, I have to say, finally a Samuel which is not a psychopath.
I
If you think of the FTX guy and the OpenAI guy.
Yeah, no comment there.
No,
That's what he
definitely
should have
not.
done. No comment. Anyway, we just got a fight. Gerald just said with Samuel. He's developing a hardware wallet with Xellox, and he's got some really cool features coming up with that as well. So he's very forward thinking. I'm not very technically minded like Joel is, but I learned a lot from the episode. So I think you guys will too. Joel, what sort of stuff did you take away?
I think what's really great in this episode is we often read common myth on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, and there's more to the story. Just because someone states they're open source doesn't actually mean that it's a good thing. Just because a hardware wallet exists that has been attacked previously, it doesn't mean that it offers a bad service. So like all of these things, he really gave good examples, I think, for, I did the math. He's between 21 and 23. So
Yeah,
amazing to see such a forward-thinking approach in his age. And I think it's a good episode for everyone who's looking forward to seeing the technical possibilities with Bitcoin in, let's say, the next 10 years.
100%. And guys, if you think there's any value in this episode, please look at the QR codes below and ping us some zaps. Zap us some sats if you feel there's any value to this episode. So we'll dive down this rabbit hole with Samuel, so enjoy. Welcome back to yet another episode of Rabbit Hole Stories. Here we have Samuel with us today from Xellox, and it's all about I think you work in the whole realm of self-custody and how important that is for people to take self-custody of their own Bitcoin. And there's a lot of talk at the moment in the news about potential exchanges potentially trying to work with government agencies and things like that. So maybe we can sort of delve into a little bit about that if you've got some insight. I'm quite intrigued because there's quite a lot of discussion going on in the ecosystem about the impact of that as well. But the whole premise of our show, as you know already, Samuel, is your rabbit hole story. So I think if we strip it right back to the beginning for you, at the beginning of your journey, and we can sort of progress into that kind of discussion later on. So I think we'll just kick off with, what is your Bitcoin origin story, Samuel?
Sure. It's a pleasure to be here, guys. I'm sort of the generation that doesn't really know when they found out about Bitcoin. Who doesn't know, the first time when you read about it on the news or whatever. But the first time I do remember hearing about Bitcoin and sort of getting interested was in 2013. I think it was 11, 12 years old at the time. It was right after Silk Road fell, actually, because I was reading the news or watching the news, and I heard about Silk Road and Ross Ulbricht and the whole fiasco that went down there. And that's when I also heard about Bitcoin, this crazy internet currency that was being used to transact on this illegal dark web. And to be completely honest, it wasn't Bitcoin that caught my attention there. It was more the dark, deep website of things. Like there's an internet sort of below the surface that you can't really access with the conventional tools. And but that's when I heard about Bitcoin, and obviously I started studying it, kind of educating my young brain about what was sort of going on there. I was always interested in technology, but my parents are a bit of Luddites. They I wouldn't say they hate technology, but they're not the most interested in it, so to say. But I was fortunate enough to grow up in Finland, a country that has a long history in technology, and back to when I sort of first understood Bitcoin, and when I first really dove into the rabbit hole, I'd say that was 2017, 2018, around those times. I was again more on the dark web side of things. I was just coming of age. I was 15, 16 years old, and I just like my friends wanted to go out, party, buy some drinks. And most of my friends had older siblings. They could just borrow their ID, but I don't, or I do, but they look nothing like me. So I was out of luck. My older siblings are sisters, so out of luck there. So I had to find a way to get a fake ID, and that's when I got in touch with Bitcoin again, and actually bought myself a fake ID. I don't know if I should be saying this, but whatever. So
Mate, we all did that. I remember,
Yeah.
sorry to digress, I remember
No
back
worries.
in the day, and I'm a lot older than you are, so technology was a little bit, information technology was kind of new. So I used to get on the school computer during lunch break and get on the old Word document and try and sort of type out a name, fake some ID, and laminate it with a little photograph from a passport. And mate, it was an operation. I didn't really get into many nightclubs with that ID.
Obviously.
But as technology evolved, it became more convincing. But anyway, I just wanted to share that with you. Carry on, Samuel.
Yeah, so I think my dad was actually telling me a while back about how he did it. He's 70 years old. 70 years old. He's much older, but he said that back in the day, you could just get assigned something from the police that you could then take to the passport photographer. And the thing was, you could just give this signed document to any of your friends. So you could basically just get a signed passport thing from the police, give it to your friend, and your friend could just go take a picture, and then you would get a valid ID with the wrong photo. But yeah, times change, and I had to get mine from the dark web, and that's when I really bought my first Bitcoin, did my first Bitcoin transactions, and yeah, it worked out fine. I got into the clubs, never had an issue with that. So that was cool. And then after that, I lived a year in Argentina from 2019 to 2020. So that was really like an eye-opening experience. Obviously, I knew about Bitcoin. I studied Bitcoin. I knew the like basics around the technology and how it works, and some of the philosophical aspects as well. But that was really the year when I got it. Like that's when I truly got it. Like, this is world changing, and this is going to be huge. And yeah, when I got back from Argentina, I sort of wanted to do something, because I don't know. I feel like many people in my generation now, they're sort of more complaining about stuff that's going on, but they don't really. I don't see a lot of people doing anything about it. Like most of the people I know are just really thinking about these things and talking about them and really complaining, but not really doing anything about it. And that kind of bothered me. I wanted to be in the group that actually changes stuff, not just talks about how we should change stuff. So I founded Xellox. Originally, what we did was the goal from the beginning was to build a hardware wallet. Like, that was the ultimate goal. I thought, okay, Bitcoin is it's decentralized, but why is it decentralized? Well, obviously have the nodes, the mining infrastructure and whatnot, but ultimately it really comes down to really self-custody. Like, if all the Bitcoins in the world were held at Coinbase or Binance, that's not a decentralized system at all. Like, that's a completely centralized system. So I figured, I kind of thought that wallets would be to Bitcoin what, like, the browsers and search engines were for the internet. Like, really the most crucial part. Like, it's a currency. Like, what are you gonna what do you need to transact in currency? You need a wallet. And I thought that hardware wallets were really kind of I'd want to say that they were maybe lagging behind sort of what could be possible, because I looked at the market and I saw a bunch of hardware wallets which were basically just being used as like storage devices. And obviously, I realized that Bitcoiners telling Bitcoiners, hey, take your hardware wallet, put it in your pocket, and walk out on the streets is not anything that people would respond well to. But what I did with my friends and family originally was I got a hardware wallet, I got a Trezor, I generated their seeds, or I let them generate the seeds, and I factory resetted the device. Now they had their own seed in their own self-custody, but they never had to buy a hardware wallet. So that really got me thinking, like, okay, when they generate the seed and they factory reset the device, now the wallet is just, now it can just be a wallet, right? They've got their Bitcoin in self-custody, they've got the words written down. Like, what can you use the wallet for now? And I thought that, okay, let's say people follow the Bitcoin mantra of, okay, have like 90% of your funds in cold storage and 10% in a hot wallet. Well, over time, that's gonna lead to a situation where 10% of the funds are just vulnerable, basically. And I got really deep into like cybersecurity stuff, like Pegasus, this spyware software, basically a full-on malware system that can, it's a zero click software system that could basically just infect any device by just sending it data, and it doesn't even have to pop up as a message.
For anyone in the Manchester area, there are a couple of councils who had a hacker. Well, they called it a hacker, who sent out iMessages to every Apple user in the council, and they later found out that it was actually a rogue operative in the police force, in the cybersecurity force. So that's a pretty scary software for them to own.
Yeah, and I thought that, okay, it's just going to be a matter of time before this software leaks. And I also thought that it's well, basically general purpose computers like what we're using now, like laptops, smartphones, smartwatches, and in the future I think we're going to be using some sort of mixed reality headset. These are all vulnerable because they are general purpose, because they draw most of their utility from the apps that you can download, like third-party apps that can be downloaded onto the device. Like, my smartphone would be nothing without the third-party apps that I have downloaded on it. Like, I wouldn't want my smartphone if I couldn't download third-party apps, but that's also the problem. So
it would literally just be a phone.
Exactly.
What it's supposed to be, right?
Exactly, which is not bad either. I mean, I'm not against smartphones that are not as addictive, but anyway, I thought that storing a decentralized currency on general purpose computers will sooner or later become, well, not a good idea, because well, let's just play with a thought. Like, if Pegasus leaks and you give malware like this to an AI, and just tell the AI, like, infect as many devices as you possibly can. It's the biggest problem is like the manual work, right? You need to find the devices, you need to find the person you're trying to target, and you need to send the data to them through the internet. But if you could give this to an entity that can just execute like this, that doesn't get tired, has an unlimited, basically, like, can do it for as long as they have power and have internet, it's going to be a problematic situation, right? And let's say people store as little as $10 in their hot wallets. Okay, it's not a big deal if you lose $10, right? But what if 10 million people lose $10? Now we're sort of now we have a problem, right? It's not an individual problem, but it's a problem for the system. So I thought, okay, we should be able to bring this spending thing to hardware wallets as well, where hardware wallets could actually be used as transactional devices, right? Like wallets really should be. And I thought that the main problem there was obviously the the perception that people have, but also the user experience, the sort of what hardware wallets are built for today. So I decided that we should build a hardware wallet that's usable, sort of competing with Apple, Google Pay, that type of experience. And I thought it would be a long road to walk, but eventually we would get there because I think smartphones, like I said, they're just general purpose computers, but they're also the main mobile device that we carry around with us every day. But this main mobile device has changed over the years. It used to be an iPod, used to be an MP3 player. It's just a form factor, or wallets occupy that same form factor. And I thought that once smartphones start moving more towards these headset type of devices, that would free up a device like a hardware wallet in our pocket that we could carry, and it would sort of become the hub for our digital property and identity. Basically, you store all your critical data offline, and also because it occupies the same form factor as a smartphone, but it has 70% less components. The battery life is incredible. Like, the battery life can be months. And you can also use it to charge your other devices, which obviously a headset will have very limited battery at first. So that was sort of the vision from the beginning, and what we started building towards. But yeah, sorry, that's a bit of a rumble, but yeah.
Mate, that's deep and fascinating stuff. And sometimes I worry, like, because I'm not that technically minded. Maybe it's a generational thing, but something I always get concerned about is my phone's ready for an update, and it always says like, "Oh, my privacy, like my device's privacy stuff has been revised and updated," and click here to confirm, update these things and stuff. You just don't know what they're actually updating, what things they're changing behind the scenes, and how sort of secure they're making it, or what they're locking you out of. And I think we should really sort of consider using these sort of third-party devices that are ultimately sort of controlled by centralized companies who are carrying out some actions based on legislation or things that government want to put in that they have to comply with. And it's something that we really need to start taking seriously, particularly as we're moving into a world towards CBDCs, the civil unrest. People are being sort of silenced and debased and deplatformed, and demonetized. So it's a scary time at the moment out there in the internet. And do you have any kind of sort of vision in the future of how we can overcome that? And is there anything you guys are doing or have anything in mind that we can sort of work towards?
Yeah, I think a big issue is the digital identity question, right? Like how does that work? How is that going to be in the future? And I think obviously the more authoritarian types are driving for something similar that you have in China, right? Sort of complete authoritarian, top-down controlled digital identity, where you basically give up everything to the government and give them access to everything. And yeah, something similar would also be WorldCoin, which Sam Altman is working on. Which is kind of like the centralized database of biometric data that you use to prove a digital identity. And obviously, the digital identity question is a big question, and it's a big problem because there's always a balance, right? You kind of the internet we're kind of used to is an internet where you can say whatever you want, you can do whatever you want because you have no accountability, because you can just create another email address and just another account and say the same thing all over if you get banned. So I like there's an internal fight within me, sort of about, we don't want this authoritarian future where we give up our data to a single party, but maybe we also don't want this, like how would I say, unaccountable internet where anyone can just do whatever. Like, the internet not being a serious place, right? You can't do any serious. You can't have a serious conversation online. You can't trust anything you see online. No one has no accountability over what they're saying or doing online. Like that's the flip side of things. And what me personally and what we're working for and what we're trying to do is something that's known as a self-sovereign digital identity, which is a digital identity that you basically decide yourself. You don't have to link it to your government ID. Like what even is an ID? Like an ID is just like it's a name, right? It's just a name you assign to someone. Like it's like that's the fundamental thing of an identity is just an identifier. So you can just have text that you can like identify someone on the basis of. So we think that a digital identity should be something the person creates themselves, and it can be whatever. Your digital identity can be your name, but your digital identity can also be an alias, or it's up to you. And then the question becomes like, okay, how do we ensure if we don't link it to a third party issued like identity document, like what's issued by the government? How can we be sure that a single person doesn't generate multiple identities? Well, the first thing you can do is, okay, you create like a cost of entry, right? So that there has to be a cost of entry into the system where no one can basically just print bots for no cost. And one way you can do that is you tie it to a hardware wallet. So you generate the identity offline, and you tie it to a hardware wallet. This way, it's not controlled by an entity. It's just like a hardware wallet manufacturer can access your keys. Maybe Ledger can now, who knows? But a trusted hardware wallet, an open source hardware wallet, shouldn't be able to access your keys in the same way that the hardware wallet manufacturer shouldn't be able to access your identity that you generate offline. But it also brings the accountability of okay, if you say dumb stuff on Twitter or X nowadays, if you say dumb stuff, you can be deplatformed. Obviously deplatforming shouldn't be anything you do lightly. Like just because someone says something you don't like that's not a reason to deplatform someone. But if someone does something truly illegal, okay, maybe then you don't want to at least push that content. But that sort of brings accountability. But then there's still a question, okay, a person could generate or just purchase multiple hardware wallets and generate multiple identities. Okay, first of all, that becomes very expensive, which is kind of what you want to do because you want to reduce the amount of bots. Or at least you want to increase the cost of bots. But another thing you can do is this isn't a perfectly formed thought in my head. I'm just shooting it out, but I've been thinking about it for a while. But you can do what WorldCoin does, but you can do it in a decentralized and self-custodial manner. So you put a facial recognition sensor and a fingerprint sensor on the hardware wallet. And the hardware wallet scans your face and scans your fingerprints and generates a hash of your facial data and your fingerprint data. And in this way, you can just post the hash on a network, and you can be sure that no one else, that this is like a unique person because it's a unique hash. And this way, the same person couldn't generate multiple identities because the hash is there, like his facial and fingerprint data is there. So you can't just generate multiple identities. But at the same time, it's self-sovereign and it's self-custodial because there's no third party that holds your facial data and your fingerprint data, because you generate it or you create it offline on your own device that you own, and you just post a hash of it. So that's, yeah.
I think this also goes into sort of the, let's call it the Web 5 vision that like the people at TBD, whatever the numbers are, I forget their username all the time, and Jack Dorsey have. The only issue there I have again is like, well, we're still trusting you, but if you actually take a look at it this way, this is, and I know a lot of Bitcoin maxis are not going to hate me for saying this, but this is actually the idea Web3 people had, going like, hey, instead of, trusting these big tech people, we'll just trust consensus with MetaMask to like build a Web3 infrastructure. So the thought has been here for a long time, but it's actually pretty simple, is what you're saying in implementing a offline part of that strategy, and then still keeping it truly ownable, and also for people to be verifiable. Because the whole hashing thing, whether that be hashing and trying to really guess the hashes in mining, or also in this sense to privatize data in a sense, this has been long or around for like decades at this point, right? So it's actually not something new we have to come up with. It's just implementing the right things in one go. And I'm guessing, from having taken a look at your website, this is the hardware wallet device you guys are building, which is which people are able to pre-order now, to then also add it into multiple things in your life. For example, yes, maybe you have your spendable Bitcoin with you, a power bank for your phone, or even an event ticket to the next Bitcoin conference, right?
Yeah, so the goal was always to implement multiple things to incentivize people to actually carry a hardware wallet around. Obviously, there's always a trade-off. Like, the more software you build into it, the bigger the attack surface grows. But well, let's look at traditional hardware wallet manufacturers that have taken the shitcoin route. They have built a tremendous amount of additional software into their hardware wallets just to accommodate the shitcoin people, right? And they don't experience any security vulnerabilities, really. I mean, there are always talks of like, hey, this hardware wallet is I don't know, according to some people, unsecure, and this one is, but not really. Like, a hardware wallet is an offline computer. It's not. It's, well, at least it's a lot more secure than an online computer. Nothing's ever going to be 100% secure, but it's always going to be a lot more secure than an online computer.
And I always, sorry to interrupt you
Yeah.
real quickly there. I always love the comparisons when they go, they go through all these things, like use an open source one, then you go into the whole thing like, I don't know, is the Cold Card license or the Passport Foundation device open source or not? You get over that hump. And then at the end, everyone is so paranoid that they go, oh, but actually you can't trust the hardware in itself. Because, like, who does the secure element and these things? And I kind of sit there sometimes and think, well, if you look at the world this way, nothing is safe anyway. So, like, fuck it. You can then use the most unsafe thing, because then at least you go by, sort of trying to eliminate the safest option and the least safe, and sort of find something in the middle or whatever. But it's always funny if I see this debate on Twitter. I kind of go, yeah, I get what you mean, but like, guys, just take a chill pill, because I don't think this is beneficial for everyone. But like, please carry on.
Yeah, and just to be clear, there's really no hardware wallet that's 100% open source. Open source is a term that gets thrown around a lot. It's a marketing term, kind of like an air-gapped hardware wallets. So there are hardware wallet manufacturers that just use QR codes, and they're referring to their hardware wallets as air-gapped. But if you look up air-gapped online, you go to the Wikipedia page, you can actually see that you can even have an air-gapped network, right? Air-gapped just means it's not open to the public internet. So to the open source part, even stuff that you can build yourself, like Seed Signer. Even Seed Signer uses a Raspberry Pi, which uses a Broadcom chip that runs on ARM infrastructure, and ARM infrastructure is closed source. So there's really no device that's 100% open source. What we do want to do in the future, obviously this requires a lot of capital, but this is what we're planning on investing most of our capital into, is to build a truly open source chip. I know Trezor has started this, Tropical Square, I think it's called, which is a fantastic thing. I love it, but the problem is that existing or these kind of open source chips, they really lag behind in performance. So you kind of have the trade-off, like, do I have a device that's the same level of performance as a 30-year-old phone, which then again no one is going to use because it's so bad? Or do I have a device that's the same performance as a smartphone 5 or 10 years ago, that everyone will want to use because it's so smooth and good to use, but it's not 100% open source? Like that's the trade-off. And I think really to bring it to the masses, you need to take the latter approach, like just build a really good device that people want to use, and then start working on towards completely open sourcing everything. Because I'm a firm believer in open source tech. Like our goal is to be 100% open source with everything, not just the source code, not just the hardware, but the manufacturing process. Like my ultimate dream would be to have a manufacturing plant in every country where people can just walk in. People can just walk in and they can assemble their own device right on the spot. Like you can just walk in. There are a bunch of all the components are there. You can take each individual component. There's stuff that you can use to verify the components, like microscopes and stuff. You can verify that all the components are as they should be. You can solder them together yourself, or let a robot do that, whatever, and just completely transparent, like as transparent as you can possibly be. But that's far in the future. It's not possible today, and it requires a lot of work and capital to build. But yeah. So back to what our sort of goal is, like why we want to incorporate a bunch of other features into it, and why we don't think it's a problem. Like I said, the traditional hardware wallets have implemented what does Ledger have, like over 5,000 shitcoins, and well, ledgers don't get hacked. Obviously, there are some phishing problems that are caused by the data leaks that they've experienced, but at the same time, it doesn't really compromise security to add extra tokens. Obviously, to a certain degree, but it's not detrimental to the security. So what our goal was is, okay, let's not add 5,000 shitcoins, but let's add something useful. Like, okay, what do you carry around in your pockets every day? Okay, keys. You carry around keys. Maybe let's add like a smart key functionality instead of adding Polygon or whatever shitcoin you want to add. Let's add something useful, right? Let's add a key tag feature. Okay, you can use the hardware wallet to open up smart locks. You can use the hardware wallet to open up car doors. You can use the hardware wallets as a two-factor authentication device, like a YubiKey. You can use it to log in to different accounts. So just in general, bring more real-world, actual, useful stuff, and not bring on a bunch of shit coins like that. That was the goal. Obviously, power bank feature, charge your stuff, and our ultimate goal, or maybe not ultimate, but short-term goal, is to incorporate something like earbuds into devices that, well, like what is this is just like a charging port. Like you just charge your earbuds there. You can just make a similar charging dock for your earbuds in a hardware wallet. That way you kind of have like an offline hub for everything, where basically combines your keys, earbuds, wallet functionality, ID functionality, power bank into kind of one offline hub that would ultimately become the only mobile device that we carry around, sort of once our smartphones are up here. That's
very
kind
forward
of
thinking of you, and you're obviously trying to sort of think about the utilization of this hardware wallet, not only for safe storage of your Bitcoin, but also make it usable for everyday purposes and things like that, particularly as we're sort of evolving into the future and becoming more reliant and dependent on technology. If you can capitalize that, you're onto a winner for sure. And it seems like you're doing quite significant work in that ecosystem with hardware wallets and things like that. And we should never really ever underestimate how important it is to take your Bitcoin into self-custody, because if it's sat on an exchange, it's vulnerable. It's actually not technically your Bitcoin. You might have bought it. It displays up on the screen there on whatever exchange that you're using, the amount that you've got, but they can leverage that. They can rug pull you at any moment. They can lock you out from withdrawing it. So it's very important that we take self-custody of our Bitcoin. So if you're new into the Bitcoin space, you should really look into that, and obviously definitely look into the products we've been talking with Samuel about here today. But I want to sort of backtrack a little bit from something you said earlier about your generation, Samuel, about not being inspired to do much. And I think that comes personally on the back of the fiat system and where it is in its timeline at the moment, and things becoming inaccessible for people of your generation. Housing used to be a lot cheaper. Now it's just become exponentially more expensive because it's been used as a store of value and it's been over leveraged. The market is saturated with, people that are holding on to this store of value. And we're in a bit of an environment now where I feel that people are living for today. They're going out trying to sort of spend their money while they've got it, living life as the best they can, going out to restaurants, getting drunk in the bar and all that sort of stuff. And there is this kind of lack of drive to really make change. And I think that's a lack of understanding how they can empower themselves through Bitcoin and make that change. What signal can we put out there for people of your generation and everyone else either side of your generation to sort of really actually get on to how significant Bitcoin is for them and for humanity moving forward?
Yeah, that's a great question, and a thought I've been thinking a lot about as well. I think Bitcoin currently is sort of a counterculture movement. And there are a lot of counterculture movements going on right now, like, okay, Israel, Palestine. There are a lot of people of my generation, obviously, very supportive of Palestine. And I'm not political in that sense, so I'm not gonna speak on conflicts that I really don't know anything about. There are a lot of things like trans rights, gay rights, stuff like this that you could also call counterculture. But what I think is the problem is that people from my generation really get drawn into these, I would say, forever conflicts. Like, these are conflicts we've been talking about literally since like the 50s, 60s, 70s, all of these. And I think it's easy for the establishment to kind of drum up this type of activity just by existing, basically. And I think people from my generation, young people in general, they always get dragged into that because they're young. Obviously, they're passionate. They have a lot of energy. They want to do stuff for the world, but usually they just get dragged into these like proxy conflicts, like basically a facades. It's like the establishment puts up a big facade, and people just gather around it and kind of want to show how angry they are and want to sort of discuss about the current thing. But I think what people of my generation should really understand is that until we fix the money, which is the bedrock of our society, we really won't fix any of these other problems. I think it's really it's interesting to see how people of my generation are starting to wake up. Some of them are starting to wake up to the problem of our current fiat monetary system, and I hope that more will, because It's kind of like, worrying about all these conflicts. Obviously, I understand they're conflicts. People are dying. It's not good. Like, we shouldn't completely ignore them, right? That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, if the patient is dying of a heart attack, you don't want to start off by examining their teeth. And that's sort of how I see the world right now, and I can explain that a bit. Like, our world is collapsing because our economy is collapsing. Like, our economy is broken, the money is broken, and obviously everything else is going to start to break because of that. But if you focus your energy on the consequences, you'll never be able to solve the root problem, and you kind of just live in this world of perpetual crisis, like constant new crises, is because that's just the fiat world. And until we solve that root problem, which is money printing, basically, all these other conflicts and protests and everything is for nothing, basically.
Bitcoin is a hugely difficult thing to grasp, with a concept that is very abstract for a lot of people, and it takes a lot of work and time and patience to sort of really sort of understand how significant it is, and how important it is to get us out of this oppressive system. And you have a lot of people globally that are a lot lower down the hierarchy, if you like, and are struggling day to day just to sort of get the next meal and things like that. And, trying to sort of find time to sit down with people like that to explain it to them is like, no, go away, fuck off. I'm too busy trying to work as hard as I can just to get this one meal. I ain't got no time for all this. And it's hard to sort of communicate the significance of things when you're living in chaos, and you're living in a world where you're living to minute, if you like. And I think as Bitcoiners, as the Bitcoin ecosystem, and for me particularly, I'm taking a lot of time at the moment because I've got the luxury of it because of where I live and my status in the world. I'm trying to sort of formulate ideas about how we can reach out to people, use different language if we have to, for them to understand. We say a lot in Bitcoin, meet people where they're at. I think personally we need to go a step further than that. It's not meeting people where they're at with where their hurdles are. It's more like, what is it that they see, and how can we sort of communicate in a way that helps them work towards understanding Bitcoin for themselves, because it's easy for me to tell them this is the answer, but they need to discover that themselves. And if I can sort of give them the breadcrumbs for that, then I think that's a good thing. I don't know if any of you got any thoughts about what I just said.
I would sign, if that would be a bill, I would co-sign it, because even I actually had this discussion today on the plane with a gentleman next to me. He was in his mid-50s, banker, he was quite
a gentleman.
Yeah, I mean, he was wearing one of those, very expensive suits, but like immediately when he realized that he was sitting next to me, he sort of took off his jacket, throw it down. We ended up talking, and then because during the flight I was watching the Bitcoin for Millennials podcast, and I think he sort of recognized the B in that logo. And he went like, "Oh, are you a Bitcoiner?" And then, I was like, "Oh yeah, I actually just been to El Salvador. I was pointing out my hat. I was I'm not gonna show my socks now, but I'm wearing the tennis socks with the Bitcoin B." And he went like, "Oh my God, you're fully into it." And he went like, as a finance person, absolutely love Bitcoin. He immediately went for the digital gold option, but he went like, but this holding it in self-custody thing, I just own GBTC. And I went like, "Oh shit." And on the other spectrum, and once the ETFs are approved, I'm just gonna be in these ETFs all day, all time long, because like that's the safest place for me to work in. And part of me sat there thinking, should I do the but self-custody has these and these advantages thing, or for now, should I be happy that like a mid-50-year-old guy actually gets Bitcoin and is using it to his capabilities? And I think this sort of highlights between us three here, because I think, Samuel, are you just Gen Z with your age?
Yes,
Okay, so we're just like millennial, Gen Z, and whatever the fuck year it is, Gen X. I don't know. We still need to figure
Yeah, I'm
this
not a
one out.
boomer.
Ian.
Don't
No,
get that. All
but
right.
we need to figure out what your generation is called. We always forget this. Every one of us has their different struggles, and yet we still are able to see the big picture through Bitcoin. And yeah, I totally agree, Sam. So if more kids your age and also my age, because millennials suck as well with their finance and especially their understanding of money, if they would understand what is going on, I honestly think it could be two halvings and we could be in a hyper Bitcoinized world, because these two generations are going to be the big ones in the next couple of decades, who are going to control wealth, big important positions, and potentially offices in politics as well. So if we can somehow bridge a gap there, I think we're on a good path.
I think so too, but I also like this, or I wouldn't say I particularly like it, but I believe it to be true. A quote from Elon Musk, which is, "Old people don't change their minds; they just die," which sounds kind of cruel, but sometimes that's just the way it is. And I think when it comes to Bitcoin ETFs, custody solutions, I'm not against any of that. Like
Yep.
I'm not against custodial solutions in any way. And I even think that, this is very contrary to many Bitcoin maxis. And even though I would consider myself a Bitcoin maximalist, I would consider myself a sort of, I want to say, rational Bitcoin maximalist, where I kind of think like, okay, we're never going to be living in a world where every single person is doing self custody. I don't even, honestly, even though I'm building self custody tools, I don't even think we're going to live in a world where 20% of people do self custody.
Mm-hmm.
But there's obviously hope that we would. But if I'm being honest, I don't think we will. So I think stuff like ETFs I think it's great personally, like because that's just going to get money from the traditional system flowing in. Obviously, I don't endorse anyone to buy an ETF. I would endorse people to buy Bitcoin and hold it in self custody. But I also think it's a big gap, or a big chasm to cross, to get like an old person to hold their own keys. My dad's 70 and he holds Bitcoin in self custody, so I don't think it's impossible. What I'm saying is I just don't think it's well, I don't think it's going to happen. But I think what is it's important to make a differentiation between self custody and cold storage, which is kind of what Ledger did with Ledger Recover. And this is where I go against many Bitcoin maximalists. But I believe something like Ledger Recover is a good service. Is it a good service in the way Ledger provided it? Maybe not. Was it the best way to come out with it? Maybe not. Was it the best time to come out with it? It wasn't. Maybe read your market a bit better. But at some point, people will want custody solutions, and the options for custody solutions are, okay, FTX, Coinbase, Binance, just basically a single person controlling that, or it might be something like Ledger Recover, where you split up the seed into 3 different server environments, and yeah. But I think obviously young people are more interested in self custody and are more capable of self custody. But I think the future is maybe something like collaborative custody, partial self custody. Maybe you split your seed into 3. You give 1 to a lawyer, 1 you put in a bank vault, and 1 you keep at your house.
Yeah,
you have it 2 out of 3 multi-sig solution. Yeah, those are my thoughts.
Yeah, and speaking of Elon Musk previously, have you guys thought of suing him for using your logo? Because it is very similar to the X logo.
It is, yeah. We were kind of, I don't know, we were both positively and negatively
Yeah, sure.
impacted, because obviously we think it's cool that he uses something similar, but yeah. Actually, the whole name and logo around Xellox is a pretty cool story, I think, because originally one of my co-founders came up with the name in like maybe 2000, what would I say, 2012, 2013. And it was on a video game you might know, which is called GTA.
Mm-hmm.
On GTA, you can start a company, like in the online version, you can start a company and you can do all kinds of crazy stuff. So he started a company, and when he was like 10 years old, basically, he came up with the name Xellox for his GTA company, and he grew it into a really big company. He bought the biggest yacht in the game. So when we were brainstorming ideas and he told it to me, I thought it was really cool. I thought it sounded cool. Obviously, maybe a bit hard to pronounce, but I think Google is not the easiest, and it's still so. So we went with the name, and it was later that I discovered that actually a company called Xerox exists. And they actually were the inventor, or the true inventor of the personal computer. And basically, Steve Jobs just stole it from them, more or less. So I thought it was a good parallel as well, because, like, I believe we're building a next generation offline computer.
Nice.
So I thought it was a cool coincidence. And then obviously Elon stealing our logo is another. So yeah, I don't know.
Fucking billionaires, eh? They steal everything.
Yeah.
We like to end our or each of our episodes on a little challenge for our guests as well, which we call the All Roads Lead Back to Bitcoin challenge. And it's just as the saying goes, usually on Twitter you read, Bitcoin fixes this, fixes that, or actually, I don't know, this thought behind it. If you do this in this way, it actually ends up being something to do with Bitcoin. And we want to prove this. So we ask each of our guests a question or a word or a person, whatever, and they have to come up with Bitcoin in their own way. This can be something very personal to you. This can be something like a funny quote you read online, or even the most simple thing like, oh yeah, you can actually buy Bitcoin with this. So are you ready for your word or your person today?
Sure, let's
Perfect.
go. I'm not sure I understood it, but maybe
yeah, we'll see.
I'll get it once we move on. Yeah.
So we thought about the word Charlie Munger, or the person Charlie Munger. How can you relate this back to Bitcoin? Again, can be a quote, funny meme, whatever. But I thought it would be cool because I've seen him on one of your product shots on your website. So I thought, yeah, that's a good fit to relate it back to Bitcoin.
Sure. Okay. Let me try this. This might be a long way, but
No worries.
Actually, my uncle once said that you should listen to old people when it comes to general life advice, but you shouldn't listen to old people when it comes to specific new things. Something in that direction was what he said, and I really think you can draw a parallel with Charlie Munger, because Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett, they have a famous interview where they talk about the problems with diversification. And they talk about not being diversified. And they said that something along the lines of that there have been multiple times when we've bet the entire farm on something. Like the entire company, we've bet on a single thing because we thought it would be the next big thing, and if we would have allocated less to it, we would have made less money. So Charlie Munger is in favor of being all in, but he's against Bitcoin. So just thinking back to my uncle's quote, what I draw from that is, okay, the general life advice is to be all in, but maybe what he's saying about Bitcoin is wrong.
Just maybe. Samuel, my friend, it's been a fascinating rabbit hole journey with you. Thank you for spending your valuable finite time here at Rabbit Hole Stories with myself and Joelle. I've certainly learned a little bit more about hardware wallets and open source and air gaps and all that kind of stuff. Like I said, I'm not the most technically minded, but it's significant talking to people like yourself. And this is my personal journey here at Rabbit Hole Stories, because I get to speak to people like you and sort of learn as I have these fascinating discussions with people. So I don't take that for granted. So thank you once again. Where can people find you if they want to reach out to you, or if they want to look into whatever you're developing?
Yeah, thanks, guys. It's been a lot of fun. If people want to find us, you can look up on X or Twitter at Xellox Wallets, and on our website xellox.io. And my personal Twitter, I'm not really focused on that. I'm focused on the Twitter of Xellox, but it's at Saohix, SAOHIX.
Perfect. I think we'll end it here. So take care, enjoy the rest of your evening, and no doubt we'll link up again in the future, because I'm sure there's other rabbit holes we can explore down the line. So take care, my friend.
Thank you very much, guys. You too.